A handcart trek is something where you get all the youth and we go, they put us in families with people we may or may not know, and then we pull handcarts.
It was a little harder than I expected, and it was a little harder to push the cart than I expected.
I think it's easy for us to take for granted what they went through and stuff, so it was good for us to go through that.
Pretty much where we reenact what the pioneers, the Mormon pioneers, did as they went across the plains to Utah.
I think it was one of the most fearless things I would ever have done in my life, and if I had a chance I'd do it again, definitely. But I don't think it was fun, it was work.
They pushed everything they had in a wooden hand cart and they had to push it basically across the country. So it was kind of a big deal.
Honestly, I didn't know anything about Trek and how that worked.
At the time we were asked to do this, I guess we didn't realize the intensity of it and what all the logistics and everything that had to happen to even make this work, all the people involved. We knew it'd be a really big thing, but we didn't know how big it would be.
Initially there was kind of a push to have one like real quick. And I could tell that this was a big enough event, a lot of moving parts, a lot of logistics that I said, I think we probably want to give it plenty of time. And so this planning has been in the planning for 18 months.
The stake presidency decided that there was going to be no scout camp and no girls camp, that the trek had to encompass all of those things.
I myself and the youth and others would learn vicariously, pulling a handcart or just spending time out in areas in geography like Bean Canyon over in Washington, where the terrain and the climate may not be so unlike what the pioneers maybe really experienced.
250 youth going, about 100 adults involved. Quite the undertaking just to figure out how to get them there, how to feed them, how to make sure nobody dies, you know. So there's a lot more than I anticipated of work had to go into it to get through that. And then there was just the obstacle of figuring out how to pay for it all.
The Ma's and Pa's, we knew that what we wanted from the beginning is we wanted that the youth to experience a really good, strong family relationship.
When I heard that Forest Grove was going to have a trek, I was excited right away. I knew that it was going to be a good thing, and as a bishop, I didn't know, being so busy, I didn't know what I would be able to do to contribute.
So I was thrilled that they were thinking about doing it, because I felt that having been on it before and what a great experience it was, I was thrilled to have that experience and make sure that my kids got a chance to go.
The bishop called us up and asked us if we'd like to be a part. We'd actually put our names on the list of people that could help with anything. They said, just put your name on the list. And he called up and said, we want you to be a mom and pa for the trek. And my wife said, really? What do we do? At that time, I don't think we had even a breadth of knowledge of what to be concerned about. So we had no concerns. I got a call that same week. I can be on the activities committee for it at the same time. So I said, great. I have no idea what that means, but sure, why not?
Well, when we're talking about schedule, though, we should point out that, again, it was in the middle of 2011, so there's a year ahead of time. So we wanted to have a lot of activities leading up to the trek, so the youth were prepared and fired up and everything. So,
and all the activities we did and we planned on, we wanted to make sure they were as close to realistic as possible. We didn't want to have things maybe that were more modernized, and we were still, but we wanted them to be as factually correct, historically correct as possible.
So history was really important.
Yeah,
so the first
yeah.
one was in October.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, first one was October. So we had.
Is it Cheney's Barn?
Yeah.
We're having a trek kickoff.
We're preparing for the trek, learning about the pioneers.
First off, we'd like to welcome all of you Thanks for traveling. Thanks for taking your time on a Saturday to be here. This is just awesome. We are going to have an opening prayer, and we will go from there.
Well, they had little stations that the kids went to
Pioneer.
learn. They did learn different things like butter making, scones, candle making. I think they had some games too that they did.
Yeah, some Pioneer games. So there's a lot of historical things that they could have done.
The games are the funnest.
Tug of war.
The three-legged race.
That's just
Me,
because you guys
me,
are good
me and
at
this
it.
guy are the dream team right now.
Dream team.
Currently, so we're waiting for somebody to beat us.
I like the donut eating contest.
I'm impressed. All the girls, they're showing they've got the stuff.
Cupcakes and donuts. I won the cupcake eating contest.
The three-legged race.
I like the donuts. I get Robbie Grapple.
I like churning butter. that was fun.
I liked seeing the things they were doing inside making the soap.
All natural, healthy soap.
I like doing the tug of war, and the bobbing for apples was fun.
You bought for apples?
Yeah.
You don't even look wet.
I didn't get wet. I had my hair back in a ponytail.
Is that bread you made yourself?
Yeah. Sister Christensen is doing it in there.
Wonderful. And what did you enjoy today? I like talking with my friends.
He's a paw. So him and his wife, they're gonna be pushing a hand cart. Trying to wrangle 8 kids at the same time.
We're cooking prairie dogs.
We are going to have a blessing on the food.
And they had some historical readings done.
While crossing the Atlantic, some of the saints in the Martin Handcart Company experienced the joys of marriage and birth, and the heartaches of death. 4 couples were married
with hand carts and some quilts. We sat there in the rain, thunder, and lightning.
September, just as the guard was calling out the 12 o'clock shift, Father died.
The square dancing was a good was a big success.
He has a story to tell about the square
dancing. Well, we
dancing.
originally when it started off, there's about half the kids who were a little suspicious of it. They'd never done it before and weren't sure it was cool to do. And so there was about half the kids that were kind of standing off to the side and weren't sure they were going to do it. So we just started grabbing kids, and literally some of them I'd have to drag, kicking and screaming, but I'd pull them and say, look, there's a young man over here who needs a partner. So I'd grab a young lady, and then I'd go grab a young man and say, there's a young girl here who needs a partner. So we grabbed them all in. By the end of the night, I think we had all but 1 or 2.
Yeah, and then
dancing,
if they'd lost a partner, they'd come to us and say, well, I need a partner. I lost my partner. So by the end, everyone was really getting into it and enjoying it.
And that was a good start because I
Mhm.
think every dance after that, the kids just jumped right in because they all tried it and they all enjoyed it.
Mhm.
So we had the January fireside, and that was a fireside for the kids. They watched the 17 Miracles
17
movie.
Miracles.
Mara and I were in with the Ma's and Pa's. Oh, well,
No, the parents.
The parents of the
Mhm,
kids,
mhm.
kind of telling them what was going on and telling them about the registration requirements and about the trip and
What
about
to
the
expect,
website
yeah,
where they
yeah.
could get information.
Equipment the kids needed.
We went to the parents' meeting and we heard that they needed, Ma's and Pa's, and we'd heard that a few times. And my husband has actually gone on a trek before, and so he had told me all these wonderful experiences, but it was a lot like a mission, so I knew kind of what that meant too. And so as we went and heard kind of what they'd be doing, there was something inside of me that thought, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be hard, but it'll be fun.
At the meeting, I felt really impressed and excited about it. I told my wife, would we be interested? And she said, yeah, that'd be a great idea. And I went right to Bishop without even any more discussion and said, Bishop, we want to do this. And his concern was, would you be ready? Because it was just 9 weeks prior. I had this knee surgery, and it was major surgery. And I just felt like I needed to go on track, and it wasn't going to be an issue. And when I was set apart for the calling, it said that I'd be able to complete the track.
I have to say I was nervous because being from Las Vegas, I know heat. And when I had heard kind of what the temperature was, we're nicely acclimated to this beautiful Oregon weather. And I thought, oh boy, do the kids know really what like 100+ dry heat feels like? So I was kind of nervous about how everybody would do with the heat.
And I have my oldest son who just turned 12, and this is my second track, and so I knew what he was going to be facing and what he would go through, and I was excited to see him with those challenges and struggles and all the great things that come with tracks. So that's how we heard about it.
Yo escuché, la primera vez que escuchamos del track fue cuando nos invitaron a venir a la estaca para presentarnos la propuesta del track y invitaron a los padres y a los jóvenes para que asistiéramos a una reunión en la estaca. Y mi primera impresión fue, yo no quiero ir, porque sabíamos que no iba a haber baños y que iba a ser algo difícil. Y yo dije, yo no quiero ir ahí, pero ellos, mi esposo y mis hijos decían, ve mamá, ve.
Y yo también escuché por medio teníamos planeado un campamento de Boy Scout, pero lo cancelamos por el trek. Y para mí, fue emocionante saber que podíamos ir al trek y compartir con los jóvenes.
Then we had several training things for Ma's and Pa's, a couple of training days, half days on a Saturday morning where they had to come in and we trained Ma's and Pa's.
There were multiple stations, some what I call more temporal stations, like how the cooking was going to go or how to set up camp and those kind of things. And then there was a couple of classes on how to deal with other people's kids and how to encourage other people's kids, especially kids you don't know.
They're all wonderful children of God, and they're at a great age where they're still moldable.
And that was actually helpful. I liked it, and we found that to be useful. It surprised me how instantly when we did get those kids, how we were able to just love them. Like as soon as they got off the bus, there was an instant kind of a bonding there.
We learned about first aid, how we were going to organize this thing. We learned about kind of what was going to happen on the trek.
When we did look at some of the things that we were going to be encountering as far as the size of the handcart, even the cooking, it allowed me to kind of run through my mind what I could expect. And with that, it allowed me to talk to other Ma's and Pa's and to start to look at different things.
It gave the Ma's and Pa's a little bit of an expectation. We were able to pack a handcart ahead of time. I think that was helpful, and I think they got an idea of what was to be expected of them as far as supplies, and I loved the class they put on with relationships and how to help kids and challenges and how to deal with that. That was very helpful, but I think none of us really could be prepared until you got out there and you were in the heat and you experienced it firsthand.
You walk around that person, you come all the way back to your line and you stop.
To
tonight we are practicing for the trek that we're holding in July for all of our youth in the stake.
We are learning how to square dance.
One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4. You guys got that?
The funnest part of the activity is dancing with a lot of new people and being able to meet new people.
Next one.
It's going pretty well. The dances are a little confusing, but they're fun.
This is promenade position, okay? What I need you to do, just like this.
Doing something besides the normal deacon shuffle, you know, and just wearing my suspenders and all that classy stuff.
Everyone here either had a good time, was forced to have a good time, or eventually just ended up having a great time because they wanted to.
The main thing that we've done with this is we want to make sure it's a spiritual event for all of the youth. Well, I should say for everybody that is going to be participating in this. Challenges all the way through. Wouldn't expect anything different.
The main challenges I've faced getting here for track is probably just getting all the stuff together. I still don't have my pants and my shoes, but I'm working on it.
Getting all the clothes, mostly the suspenders, because no one wears suspenders anymore, I guess.
We know we're going to have a number of youth that are automatically come out because they do everything they're supposed to do, and God bless them. But we also have youth that are inactive. We have youth that don't feel like they're wanted and things like that. And we're starting to see those kids come out too. And that's probably the greatest spiritual thing I think I see so far. It's going to be great on the trek because of the things we've got planned and the stuff that they're going to be going through. Their testimonies will grow, and I guarantee you their spirit will grow. And that's what it's all about.
I got all my clothes at Goodwill and stuff. It's not that big a deal. Everything else is pretty easy to find. And I'm in beautiful shape, so.
Yes, I'm afraid I'll blow everyone out of the water because I'm just showing shape. It'll just be a blast for me, so I think I'll be good.
And then there was the May mini track, right?
Mm-hmm.
May,
Mm-hmm.
end of May. We did an 8-mile hike on the Banks Vernonia Linear Trail.
Yeah, we didn't know it was 8 miles when we did it because our.
No, we thought it more like 6.
Yeah, we started adding the miles up, and then afterwards, and we thought it was longer than 6 miles, and we had gone through part of it, but not all of it. And so we were surprised to hear that it was really an 8-mile trek.
I kind of prepared us like how it's gonna be like in the actual trek.
They did well.
Yeah, all the kids ran it like jackrabbits.
Yeah, they were running.
So it went well.
Yeah.
When the stake first talked about Trek, they kept mentioning these buckets. All of our gear had to be in a bucket. and we only had 17 pounds allowed in a bucket. And they ended up being just food storage buckets, the white 5-gallon buckets with the lids. We weren't the first stake to ever use a bucket, but that was an outstanding idea to get the youth all their things in one place and an opportunity to sit on something. I think next time my bucket will have a back on it so I can lean back a little bit.
I had talked to Joe Bender about the kickstands that all the Trek carts had, and one of the things that I did last time is I had used a kickstand.
I started running a little bit so I could be more in shape. I read some books about the William Morton handcart companies and read my scriptures a lot, said prayers a lot, so I could be ready spiritually.
We made lots of bloomers, that's what we did. Oh yeah, I went to the sewing nights. I was with the young women. I was the Laurel advisor up until right before track. And so I was at all the little sewing nights and talking about it and doing lots of Trek activities and shopping at Thrift City for stuff for our kids. And I don't know, did you do any prep other than, hey, buy me a pair of suspenders?
That's about it. Made sure we all had hiking boots.
Yeah, that's true.
And wool socks, lots of wool socks. I've never spent $100 on socks before, so that was a thrill.
I got to learn how to sew better, which was kind of cool. And we also had a night where we learned how to French braid hair.
Just reading the scriptures, attending seminary, all those kinds of things.
We had to pick an ancestor and learn a little bit about them, and that's who we trekked for.
Everybody got an ancestor, and during the trek when times were tougher, or you would think of the ancestor you had on your dog chain, and you think of them and then and how much suffering they went through, and that was your motivation to keep going.
We had family night where we kind of went and looked through our ancestors, and we got to pick some, and we read stuff about them and stuff.
Me and my mom and some of our friends took me out sometimes and went walking.
To prep for Trek, I started reading my scriptures and I actually started getting into the habit of doing it, and I was able to do it also during Trek.
I got all my Pioneer clothes and I got all ready, but I also really focused on learning about the Pioneer that I was going for. I was going for my 4 times great-grandfather, Zedek Knapp Judd, and he was part of the Mormon Battalion, and Brigham Young asked him to go help settle Arizona.
Honestly, didn't really do much. Just try to get as much cardio in as possible. I did some background information on Pioneers, but that's about it.
I read the scriptures. I asked my Heavenly Father to help give me the strength on Trek to make it through the trek, and I started doing my duty to God a lot more.
We had to, make the journals. We had to. I can't even remember everything that we did, but it took up a lot of our time. We did 2 Trek activities a month. We did a lot of the journals. We did a lot of Pioneer preparation. We just did everything that the stake asked us to do to try and be prepared.
I can't worry so much about me because I'm going to have other people's children I'm responsible for. So I kind of felt like I needed to prepare so that I'd be ready for them to help out the youth with what they needed.
Para mí fue emocionante, excitante poder representar el PA de otros nuevos jóvenes, pero estaba yo preocupado porque no conocía a los hijos y las hijas, y tenía esa preocupación de ver cómo podía yo hablar con ellos y explicarles en inglés, y era mi preocupación solamente el idioma, pero todo salió muy bien.
Y nos preparamos con ayuno y oración y el templo y varias cosas para poder tener el espíritu y poder comunicarnos con los niños, no en inglés, pero sí espiritualmente.
Pudimos hablar el idioma del corazón, el espíritu.
There's definitely a lot of last minute shopping, saying, oh, we forgot bug spray, we forgot flashlight, and going and finding everything.
There was just a lot of paperwork to get in, and some wards were bringing it in, but they were missing things here and there. And up to the last minute, we were still gathering up some of that last bit of information.
Going into Sunday, the Sunday before Trek, I probably didn't even want to go. And I wasn't sure if Trek was where I needed to be. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. Trek was amazing, but and I'll do it again next time, and I'll change a few things how we prepare, and I'll have a much better attitude the week leading up to Trek, that's for sure. But there was a lot of preparation that went into with the Young Men's program.
The main objective of the Trek period was for the youth to have a spiritual experience, for them to either gain or build on their testimony of the gospel. And so in all the meetings and all the preparations, we would remind ourselves, that the whole point of what we're doing here is for the youth to have a spiritual experience.
What about lightheadedness? Could that be it? What about a flushed face? It's going to be 105 degrees today, and it's going to be 100 degrees every day this week. So we need to make sure we're drinking plenty of water. Make sure you look out for people in your family and in your company. So we're really close.
When we first got there, all the other kids were getting off the bus, and it was really, really different terrain for me, because I'm used to like kind of green, luscious plants and stuff, and then there was just like a shrub here or a shrub there. It was a pretty cool sight to see all those handcarts. We were all getting kind of excited to see them, and there was a bunch of families already getting their stuff set up.
We were the last people to get called out into our families, and we all looked at each other like, okay, I guess we're all in a family.
The first thing they did when we got off our bus, they gave us a hug and they were like, welcome to our family and stuff. So it was really nice.
When we first got off the bus, I thought, oh wow, this is going to be interesting, getting this family to start working together. And we had a little bit of skirmishes going on right at the start, but within even later on that day and throughout the rest of the week, they were just awesome.
When they got off the bus, every one of them was excited to be there. A couple of them had that little glint of fear in their eyes. They weren't sure what to expect. We loaded the handcart and we said, we had our own little family meeting, and what did we expect to get out of Trek? We asked them, what do you want? And varied answers came from that. One of them said to survive. We basically outlined it saying, if you're hot, if you're tired, if you're hungry, help someone else, and those things will go away. And every one of them took it to heart.
My pa was the instructor for the square dancing. He was the DJ. And then he was so funny. The first thing he said to us was, okay, I am loud and obnoxious. And it was just really funny. And then, and he was actually.
My Trek family was great. I got there and I was really nervous because I didn't know anyone. They were all from different wards and different schools, and so I was definitely really nervous, but I got to know them really well. Now they're some of my really good friends, and my parents were great, and they were all really good examples.
I think the fact that we didn't know each other coming in makes a big difference, because it allows a pecking order, it allows leadership skills to come forward, because they don't have anyone that they know and they have to find who they are. And that's so nice about Trek, is that in just a short amount of time, you start to see the character traits that you look for in young men and young women.
When we got off the bus, thank goodness it was only 70 degrees. Really appreciated that. But that's when I really started getting an understanding that I wasn't just going to be walking along beside the handcarts not doing anything.
The team captains headed up, each of about 5 or 6 Ma and Pa families, each team captain. There were 5 of them. And of course, they were to report to the trail boss.
All the communication went from the trail boss, President Richardson, to the company captains, and from the company captains to the Ma's and Pa's. And right away there's questions, from the Ma's and Pa's. Hey, where do we find this stick? How do we load this bucket? Do we have nets? Do we have bungee cords? All these questions, and they were all coming to me, and I'm like, wow, I got to be on the ball here to understand what's going on. And once we were ready, we just started trekking. We just started going out there, and the first, I don't know how far we went that first little bit, maybe 1.5 miles or something like that to our first stop.
When we first got there, there was some clouds in the sky, so we weren't really like, oh, it's not going to get 100 degrees.
After we started walking that first stretch, it seems like we started talking to each other, and I tried to talk to them each individually so I could get to know them a little bit better, and by then they were already starting to click.
From the very moment we started pulling the handcart, you started seeing personalities emerge, and I had a great mix of wonderful youth.
I've been to like EFY and stuff, and you're with these people, but you never get to know them super well. But I think when we went on trek, we didn't have to get to know them. It was just this weird thing, like where we showed up and we were like, oh, we're best friends, we're family, we're together, and it was awesome.
What I was impressed with is how quickly the kids kind of meshed together and became a family. It didn't seem to take long for them to accept one another and kind of get into the spirit of trek and start working together.
First, my trek family was kind of a little quiet, but then just after the week went along, I felt like it was like my own family.
When I saw the girls, I was like, oh, dang it, girls, I'm gonna have to be doing all the work, but I was really surprised. We all, really worked our load in there.
My mom and pa were also like really good. Like they helped us on almost everything. Like I don't think I would have been able to do the trek without them.
We learned a lot about each other, and we always had a good laugh.
We had our first sort of midday camp where we set up, had some workshops and things.
I think it helped that first day that it was so hard. That first little bit, everybody was excited and had the adrenaline pumping, and that first little 1.5 miles, there really wasn't a lot of questions or issues. We get into our lunch area where we were there for 3 hours, and we didn't know how to interact at that point. We just didn't, we were new, didn't really know. I didn't know any of the Ma's and Pa's really before. So it was kind of touch and go, trying to understand the dynamics there.
And then the sun started to come out. So the cloud cover broke. It was probably 105, 106, 107 degrees, something like that. And we leave our lunch area and we go around this corner, and all of a sudden we're going up this hill. And the hill is pretty long, not overly steep, but it was just thick, deep sand. And that's when things really started to get a little, I'll call it crazy maybe. So it was dusty, and all of a sudden I said, wow, this is a little tougher than I had imagined. I helped my first family up the hill, helped them push their cart. I ran back down to the next cart, and I helped push their cart, and I did that for all 6 of my carts, and we had some kids that were having heat exhaustion already, and some kids falling by the wayside, and that's when we understood that this is going to be a hard task for us, and we really need to work together. But I could see myself being able to play an important role for these families, in that, if they lose a kid, I can jump in and help out on their handcart. I can help them understand where we're going and what we're doing. And that first little hard time, we got a lot of communication with each other and a lot of respect for each other, as we had to do hard things. When you do hard things together, you tend to come together, and you tend to have respect for each other because everybody's working hard.
rope pull on the first day. I didn't actually pull any hand carts up because we were like the last hand cart up, but I still had to walk up the hill, and a lot of people had heat exhaustion because it was over 100 degrees that day. We had to walk up this really steep hill that I heard that like a car couldn't go up, so I was kind of nervous that I was like gonna fall off and hurt myself.
When my husband got sick that first night, that was really rough, just because, I mean, I rely on him for a lot of stuff, and he knows how to do a lot of that, you know, tents and Dutch oven cooking, which I didn't really know how to do. I should have practiced that a little bit more, but just seeing him sick and not being able to participate, like I knew he wanted to help out, and it really brought the pioneers, what they went through, it really brought it really close to home for me, just because there were women who had to go on without their husbands and raise their kids and do all the tents and all the cooking and the pulling, and I don't know, he was fine, but a lot of those women, their husbands weren't fine, their families weren't fine. They had to leave them behind on the plains, and so that was really hard for me just to experience that a little bit, but it was also a really neat experience though to be able to witness that.
My first day I succumbed to the heat, and that was extremely humbling for me. On the first day out, I thought, oh, the big girl goes down, and I felt really embarrassed, frankly, that I was failing and experiencing some heat exhaustion and nausea and all that good stuff. That was extremely hard because I felt guilty as soon as, I did all the stuff, pulled the 3 wagons up the hill, then went and helped start setting camp up, but then I just couldn't do it anymore. I was starting to feel pretty nauseated. And so I felt guilty leaving my family and Eric behind to set everything up. And I don't know, it was a very emotional experience for me to not be able to do what I wanted to do. But the good part of that, and the thing that I learned from it, is I had to accept help, and that's hard for me. It helped me to recognize what was going on in other people a little bit faster too, and to be able to help them and encourage them to receive help, because you don't want to let it go too far because it gets pretty miserable. So I appreciated having that experience ultimately, that I had to rely on others, because I think that's what it was about out there, is realizing you can't do it by yourself and you have to rely on one another.
It was like one of the hardest days because it was just like really hot, and like everybody was like passing out.
My pa, the first day after that was the hottest day, he actually like kind of like got overheated pretty bad, so for the rest of the week he was kind of on recovery.
We had President Richardson out there as the trail boss, heading things out. He, of course, leads by the Spirit. He is very in tune with taking time to listen to that still small voice, to know which direction or what we're supposed to do.
At the end of the day, I could tell that if I were really a pioneer, really crossing the plains, and the weather was like this, and it was exhausting everyone trying to get their handcarts up and down these hills, that perhaps we should reevaluate how and when we trekked. And that turned out to be a real-time adjustment in our trek.
We had an itinerary set up for the entire week, and it was mostly trekking in the mornings and activities in the afternoon, and then a little bit more trekking after the activities was pretty much the daily schedule. But they got out there and it was so hot, over 100 degrees, that they decided to do all their trekking before 11 and then camp and then do activities the rest of the day.
So that was how we made that little adjustment. Turned out it was a blessing. We kind of followed that pattern the rest of the week because it was hotter. I think many people have hiked before, but I don't think anyone was prepared for the hiking in the heat, and that was the wild card, and we had a lot of folks that felt the heat exhaustion.
Mara and I were staying at base camp, and I went up there Monday to look at the camp, and it literally looked like a bunch of Afghan refugees that just came across the border and just collapsed. It was pretty bad. The wagons were kind of in a circle, but the tarps really weren't up, and the tents, everything was just everybody was just shot, and it looked really bad.
I brought my KP because I have a whole giant stick. I want to share deodorant with you. That's a little bit weird. It's not even open.
I have really been impressed with how great the kids have been. I mean, they are pushing hard and pulling and doing their very best, and I'm really proud of them.
It really shows how hard they had to work, and that you think it's really easy, but it's not. It's not even close to easy at all.
When you get a family, you're just getting really, really close to the people in your family, and so you're like always like looking out for them and always like willing to help them, and so it's really cool.
Well, I've enjoyed experiencing the real, authentic heat and harsh environment that, I mean, you know, we have some comforts that, you know, that the pioneers didn't have, but I don't think that the weather's been nice.
Well, I knew it was going to be really, really hot, and it wasn't. It was really, 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 really hot.
I love my family.
I like it because it's hot.
Yahweh, 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 Yahweh.
You on my land.
Yahweh, 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 Yahweh.
Know how to read.
I came from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I'm going to Louisiana, my true love for to see. It rained all night the day I left, and the weather it was dry. The sun so hot I froze to death. Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee. I had a dream the other night when everything was still. I dreamed I saw Susanna coming o'er the hill. The buckwheat cake was in her mouth and the tears was in her eye. Says, I'm coming from the south, Susanna, don't you cry. Oh, Susanna, don't you cry for me. I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee.
By Tuesday, just after one day, I went up to the camp, and it was like a night and day difference. You know, everybody had learned, the families were starting to learn how to work together, and the tarps were up nice, and they had good shade, and everybody's campsites were looking good, and they were working together on dinner, and we saw families having devotionals and singing hymns and praying together and stuff. So within just one day, you know, they just coalesced.
It was fun to watch families cook together, pray together, and eat together.
I wasn't used to cooking food out on those those stove things, and it was just it was difficult, but it was a lesson to me.
By the time nighttime came around, you were hot, you were tired, and everything. Cooking was a chore, but it was a thrill to have the food ready and prepared for us, and we knew how hard everybody was working to get it out there.
I love the food. When you're starving, you got to eat everything, and in that heat, and you're pulling hand carts, you have to eat everything.
Nothing like hot beef stew to cool you down, but it was good.
The Pioneer activities, the plans, you know, the Pioneer games and such, I thought was just, you know, marvelous to have all the cell phones left behind.
So they were on the fly, switching stuff around and making things work. But because they were so prepared and had everything organized from the perspective of the youth and the ma's and pa's and stuff, it just seemed seamless.
Kids had a lot of fun with archery and the hatchet throw. I was really excited when I was able to hit the target with the hatchet.
Shooting the BB guns and pellet guns were really fun.
The activities were fun, and kind of educational.
We had quite a bit of downtime on 1 or 2 days that was nice and needed because we were all pretty tired and hot.
It was cool to see how our family kind of taught each other. There were some people that had never shot a bow before, so we taught them how to shoot.
Some things I already knew, like how to make a tripod, and it actually also came in handy when it came to making the catapults.
There was lots of water fights, and my brothers kept soaking us, so that was kind of nice. We stayed cool. Well, near the end of the week, they had to start rationing the water because people were doing so many water fights.
When it came to the games and the kids and watching them play, you could see true joy in their faces. It was neat to see how they were forgetting their aches, their pains, and they were playing with their brothers and their sisters, and it was a good experience.
I know the boys in my family, as well as the girls, just loved some of the, the more physical ones, that like the tomahawks and the BB guns.
We were hoping for more violence from the Indians, though. We were a little disappointed in how tame they were.
That's true.
The activities were very fun. I liked the square dance.
It was just delightful to watch them dancing and doing square dances, because teenagers, nowadays just would never think to do that, and they were having so much fun.
You know what my favorite was all the gussying up that happened, the teeth brushing and the extra deodorant. And some girls even had perfume on. I was like, where did that come from? But there were some good smells. That was probably the most enjoyable part. Was
Yeah, it smelled good for a few minutes.
I think Pioneer dances are 100 times better than stake dances.
The dances at Trek were the highlight for the young men and young women. It really is neat to see the young men and young women not care what anybody thinks about them, to get out there and just have fun. And as they had fun, you could see just pure joy. And I think that's what the dancers brought, was just joy that the young men and young women needed at that time. And for the Mas and Pas, it brought smiles to everyone's faces.
The dances were fun. I would say success on those. Josh Gritton, he when I saw him out there dancing, you know, and I you know, he had a lot of fun. You know, and it's good that certain things like excited him to kind of get his mind off of home.
We didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings by being too awesome out there.
That's
so,
true.
You
That's
know,
a
we
good point.
restrained.
If it helped them to be with the other kids and to love them and appreciate them and to have a good time with them. Everybody's doing the same thing and not worrying about what they're wearing and what they're thinking or somebody's looking at me funny or whatever. It was just fun.
I had to pay a couple girls to dance with my son.
Yeah, you should not have said that. It's rumor. It's all
rumored. Yeah, rumored that some girls got paid to dance with my son.
I had gone up on the hill and watched the youth come by, and they were just wonderful and so happy and cheerful. But I'd had a comment about, well, I won't get into detail, but it was a comment as why we are punishing, why we were punishing them, and that I took that to heart. That was very, very difficult for me to know that perhaps we were asking more than what we should of these youth. So. As everyone was trekking, I walked back to base camp by myself on the trail they had just gone on and asking the Lord why this had to be so difficult and why were we doing this in the first place? Is there other ways to teach them the things we wanted them to know? And I'd gotten down to the gravel road, and the road there, the gravel was black, and it was before the quarry, the rock quarry there, and I was walking along the road just asking for an answer as to why we were doing this, just feeling miserable inside that we were causing so much pain and agony, and I knew what the next day was going to bring. So I was really struggling with a lot of things. And as I was walking down the road, asking these questions, I looked down, and right in front of me was this perfectly white rock in the middle of the black gravel. So I thought, that's wonderful. I got my answer, and I know what it means. It means that we're trying to have these youth be like a white rock in the world, in this black, dark world. We want them to be this strong, beautiful white rock that can withstand the heat and all the pressures that they're going to have, and to stand out among everybody else, because that white rock was very obvious. It was just quite brilliant. And I was very proud of myself that I had come to that conclusion, that I felt that that was what the Lord was telling me. And I had not walked much further, and in the road, just right directly in front of me, was this beautiful little white butterfly that was dying in the gravel, and you could see its little wings just flickering, trying so hard to get up out of that hot rock, and it couldn't move. It was kind of trapped between two rocks, and that's when it really hit me what we were doing. Is we don't want the youth in this church, or specifically in our stake, to be like this beautiful white butterfly that cannot stand the temptations of the world and who fall in the cracks of the rocks and perish. We don't want that. We want them to be firm and strong like the white rock. So that to me was a very spiritual experience. I went back to my tent and just laid there and cried for a while because I had to take it all in. But it was a turning point for me, realizing that that's why the original handcart pioneers had to go through what they did. So they were like this white rock that could be an example for others who maybe weren't as strong.
I got there on Wednesday, and I was able to see our pioneers, our handcart company, come up the small hill onto the saddle that we were camped out, and it brought a tear to my eye, because it was just amazing to see these youth pushing and pulling up this small incline. But they came into camp, and they're just they got right to it. They set up camp, and the youth that went on this trek are just amazing. I volunteered to be a character or individual, Ephraim Hanks, who was a real person back in 1856 that helped rescue the Martin Handcart Company.
Brother Jensen came up and played the part of Ephraim Hanks and did these presentations in front of everybody, and he did an awesome job preparing, and you'd have thought it was actually Ephraim Hanks up there talking. There were people, when he was telling his stories, that were crying and tearing up, and you could just really feel the spirit there with that, and it just, you knew it was true. We had the whole camp, all 300 something of us, gather around while in the middle of the trek they sang, and it was wonderful.
My friend Jenny, I think she ate peanut butter, and she didn't know that she was allergic, I guess, and then she was all shaking.
You know, I've seen about a lot of people that were like freaking out, and it's like, do you even know Jenny? And it's like, no, but it's like that's scary stuff, you know. That's a daughter of God, and you know, like something's going down right now that shouldn't be going down.
When that happened, my uncle and my cousin came and gave me a blessing.
Mi sobrina Jennifer de los Santos se enfermó y me hablaron para darle una bendición junto con mi hijo que también tiene el sacerdocio y que estaba ahí. Le dimos una bendición de salud.
As a branch, we all pray together, and we I think we did 2 prayers on our own, separate from everyone else.
It was just a really reverent atmosphere for the rest of that camp. President Richardson even invited us to have a statewide prayer for her.
As soon as the prayer was over, I was like looking around, making sure everybody, like a couple other people I could see crying, so I didn't feel like the only one.
When the choir was done singing, we did a whole circle for her because supposedly she was going to go to the hospital, so we thought she was going to be bad.
Yeah, we were crying and we were emotional, but I needed that the Lord was there and that she would be healed. And once we got the news that she came back, we were all happy and we were excited. And the good thing about that is that we were pretty united that day, and we were pretty strong. And I think our testimony grew about prayer and miracles. It's because knowing that she was okay, knowing that it'll all go well it's actually something I would always cherish.
I could see the power of the priesthood and how faith in God can really help someone recover very quickly.
It makes me feel really special, and I'm glad, and I know that He will always be there for me, because I know that He doesn't leave us alone, and I know that He's always there with us through everything and walking right beside us. It makes me feel that my Heavenly Father does love me, that He does care for me, and that He always wants the best for me.
Para mí, cuando oramos todo el grupo y el presidente de Estaca nos invitó a orar por Jennifer de los Santos, pues fue para mí emocionante y maravilloso, porque todos estaban juntos y después estábamos preocupados por ella, pero ella regresó bien, regresó sana y fue un milagro bien importante que nos hizo darnos cuenta que la oración y la fe hacen todo. Y no importa dónde estemos mientras estemos juntos.
Y que aún a pesar de que las cosas fueron muy difíciles, envidio a los pioneros porque ellos disfrutaron de un amor en su plenitud. Ellos vivieron la caridad 100% y ese gozo recompensa el dolor y el sacrificio, lo recompensa, vale la pena.
Sí, al principio pensamos, el primer día, no queremos estar aquí, a lo mejor es difícil, porque hicieron en estas condiciones, pero ahora el milagro que hay también está en nosotros, porque yo dejaría todo lo que tengo por volver a vivir así, por tener esos momentos, porque esa fe, ese amor, esa caridad nos hace querer tenerlo siempre, y fuera con lo que tenemos no lo podemos experimentar tanto.
Some of us will have problems with that.
There were two sort of different opinions about how we might handle some of the activities on that third or fourth day. And one of the issues had to do with what they call the women's pole, where basically that's been sort of a real traditional thing in other stakes, not necessarily any historical basis per se, but sort of a replication of a time when maybe sisters and children would be pulling a hand cart because maybe their spouse was called off to a war or died or whatever. So there's sort of a view that maybe this would be a great experience, and others had said that this was a great activity. And so I was listening to that, although I'll be honest, I had some concerns about just safety issues and the lesson that might teach our women in the church. I don't feel like we wanted to teach them that the men would stand by while they were pulling hand carts. I didn't know if that was the message we wanted to send. And then on the other hand, was sort of to teach or reenact what the saints experienced at Rocky Ridge out of Wyoming, where they had a very steep climb, and randomly there were some folks that, due to whatever issues along the trail, snake bite, frostbite, would drop off. And so, do we simulate that? The hinge pin of the plan of happiness. And this came very clearly into my mind in the morning, that we need to have freedom to choose. That men and women must have agency. We cannot rob them. We cannot tell them they will do this or tell them they will do that. But rather they need to be free to choose. They need to be participants in the decision-making process and choose for themselves. I knew that there were some folks that, due to their feet or just concerns about health, they didn't want to do a particular event or the pole, and there are others that, and so I feel like they should have an opportunity to, if they want to go right into Zion and get healed up, they should have that choice. That there'd be others that would want to do the Rocky Ridge, and I figured they should have that choice, and that others that want to do the pole. And so I presented that to all the parties involved and said, this is what I think the choice should be, is that we should be free to choose. And so rather than me make the decision, I gave it back to them for them to make the decision. And in that process, we saw families communicating, company captains, and in the end, they all came back, and some said, I want to do all of them. Some said, we just, due to whatever reason, we need to get to Zion, and they were free to choose. But the rest of the day just unfolded beautifully. It's like Heavenly Father just guided the whole day.
We did the women's pole first, and as they took us down that hill, farther and farther and farther, it just seemed like the hill never ended, and we were going to have to pull that back up the hill. And then we went through the little devotional with Sister Hinky.
Give me a young woman who loves home and family, who reads and ponders the scriptures daily, who has a burning testimony of the Book of Mormon. And give me a young woman who is virtuous. Give me a young woman who has maintained her personal purity, who will not settle for less than a simple marriage. And I will give you a young woman who will perform miracles for the Lord now and throughout eternity. I say these things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Spiritually, I could feel the weight of the decision that was made as the sisters were left on their own. And you could feel kind of that solemn sense as the men went left and as they were up on the ridge. You could kind of feel how losing the priesthood, or how scary that could be, how intimidating. A lot of the girls were afraid. They didn't think that they could do it.
I heard from other girls that they had it kind of hard. They had a lot of beehives on their cart, and so they were working harder for the cart. But they said there were some girls that didn't want to do it, and they came back saying that it was a great experience, that they really understand what the women pioneers went through when the men were off rescuing or working with other carts and stuff.
It wasn't as bad as I thought it would be, but I did kind of miss having the guys around to help us, just because it was kind of weird just having all girls. It was like something's missing.
We went out there and Brother Bradley talked to us about how we need to be there for them and how the role the priesthood plays in their lives.
We talked about how the women that went on the actual handcart trail had to pull the cart without their husbands.
It definitely makes me have more respect for them, knowing that some of the women had to do it all by themselves because the men were giving up their portions to feed them.
When President Bradley said that you cannot help the young women or all the women that are pulling the carts, I was kind of devastated because I wanted to help them out. So once when I saw them come up, it was kind of painful to me just because I can't have them work so hard and just let them be alone. So, but once they told us that you can go and help, I just ran to my company and helped them out.
When they came down to help us, I really don't even know how to explain it. It was just, I don't know if it was relief or knowing that they were there for us. And knowing that our pioneer ancestors had to do the same thing. And I really think that they were there with us too.
The young men standing up there, it was definitely, it gave us the extra boost we needed, seeing them there, knowing that they supported us and that they wanted to help us. And when we got past that certain point when they could, start helping us go, it was really, really nice. And when our brothers told us later that it was the hardest part was not being able to help us, it really meant a lot. And I definitely gained a new appreciation for the priesthood and for my brothers on track.
And the final stretch, all the guys came running when they were allowed to come help us, and they just took the handcart and went running when we were how did they do that? I mean, it's like they were just built for this kind of thing. But
it was definitely harder without the guys, but it was a good learning experience for us.
We were going up Rocky Ridge, and President Richardson tapped our strongest puller on the shoulder and said, "You now have tuberculosis," and so he dropped out of the pull. And so we pulled that as a family as far as we could, and we kind of turned off into the weeds, and we got to a point where we just couldn't pull it anymore. And we said, we need a miracle. We've got to heal Ammon. And so we gave him a priesthood blessing, and we healed him. But it just made me think of the faith of those pioneers as they, experienced that for real. They needed a miracle, and they had the faith to do it. And we hear about those kind of miracles that they had. And so even though ours was artificial, it really stopped and made us think, and it was one of the highlights of our trip.
So I was one of the people that they picked to be sick. I got a rattlesnake bite, and it was kind of lame actually, because I'm just walking and doing nothing and felt sort of useless.
We only had one sick member, that was Sammy. Apparently he had diarrhea or dysentery or whatever it was.
We stopped, and the company captain said, "Okay, if you get a popsicle stick, you are pretty much dead, and you can't help your family until we get up to the very top." And they needed to even out the wagons because some wagons had more people than others. So I got put in the family in front of us, and we started up the hill. Well, my legs and feet just hurt so bad I could barely walk anymore. And we stopped on the hill to take a break, and I just said a prayer in my mind saying, "Heavenly Father, please help me," because I wasn't sure I was going to be able to help my family much more. And when we started again, my My feet didn't hurt, my legs didn't hurt. I had just gotten up from a nap. I was ready to go. I was energized, and I started to run up the hill. Some people might call it, oh, I had an adrenaline burst. I just took a rest and I felt fine, but I knew that was the Lord. There was no other way to explain it.
We thought, we had made our choices, but in the end, Heavenly Father was going to teach us yet some more things. And so as we came down off the top, and I think we're all pretty exhilarated. My impression was that Zion was close at hand.
As we left off for Zion, the kids were excited and they pretty much could taste the cold water and feel the green grass under their feet.
And we stopped to take a break, and you could see Zion over the hill, and everyone was so excited, and we were taking pictures, and we were, like hugging each other. We were so excited, and we're like, oh, it's only like 30 minutes at the most.
Those that had chose to go to Zion and took a little detour to get in there quicker, it turned out that in the end it was not easier, that there was miscommunication about the correct path that they should go, and they headed up over a knoll. And I remember coming down the hill and Brother Bender saying, I don't think they're going the right way.
We got to the ledge where we were supposed to be able to go down, but I don't think they realized that there was a rock quarry.
We had to stop, and we had to make some decisions. We sent down some runners, some of our strongest, youngest men. I can tell you it was just very inspiring to watch these young men just come running down this hill and just go over that knoll and disappear.
And then I looked up, and all these boys were running down the hill to come help us that had taken the other path.
But as we waited there with our family, we were able to express that in life, sometimes you think you're taking the short, easy road and it leads you off a cliff. Or it takes you someplace that you wouldn't have guessed, and you end up having to do more than those that, were taking the hard route.
But then as we rejoined the train and headed down, I thought, well, we're all together, now it'll be an easy descent. But we had lost a lot of time by then. Water was down, people were tired, we were out exposed longer than we thought. And as we went down into the ravine, it looked like a straight shot, but it turned out to be one of the most challenging pieces of the trail because it was side hilling, sandy soil, so the handcarts would slide a little bumpy, and it collected the heat. It was very hot down there. And so very quickly it went from an easy descent into Zion to probably one of the most rigorous, challenging. Right when you mentally thought you were there, you had to now push even harder because you were not there. And it was important that we moved more quickly.
I think we were really helped immensely by Heavenly Father to get past the steep hill and the sand, that 1 mile of sandy torture, and across the mud bog.
Okay, Brandon, let's go. Come on, push her on the back.
Good job. Careful, it's deep. Just go, but careful, it's deep.
Keep going.
Oh, watch out. Okay, go. Push. Oh,
get up. Gotcha.
There was a real marshy, boggy swamp area that we had to cross over right at the end, and some of these, they just couldn't pull them across. They were just so dead tired and overheated and exhausted. And so there were several young men that just were right at that station, and they just cart after cart, and they had to run through in muddy swamp up to their knees, and over and over and over.
Careful, it's deep. Oh. Okay, just be careful. Whoa, careful.
Oh, yeah.
Careful. Oh, watch out.
Oh, that was legendary.
Okay, careful, girls. Oh, wait, stop.
Power.
Go. Keep going up that hill.
Power up.
Good job. Keep going.
Keep going up the hill. Run up that hill. Keep going.
Pretty soon, these bunch of young men just came out and started helping the families pull the handcart the last little bit away. They could have just stayed in Zion and enjoyed the sprinkler system, but no, they came and they helped us, and then pretty soon a group of men came and helped carry Jade out, and so that was a good miracle right there, because just the thought that they would come and help us, it was just pretty nice.
I felt inclined to, like many did, to go back and help out. I loaded a half a gallon full of ice water into a canteen, and I took my wife's half-gallon canteen of ice water, and I started marching by myself to go back to help whoever might be left. And I said to myself, I'm gonna provide cold water to the first person I see who really needs help. And as it turns out, of all the people, the first person that I met coming back was my own son, who had already gone back and helped, and he was dehydrated. And the same story. The person that I was sent to help turned out to be my own flesh and blood, and that stuck with me.
There were miracles that happened, and it wasn't necessarily miracles done by angels, but done by the brothers and sisters who were there. And what I saw were people gathered together to help each other get through trials. And that was the great miracle, is that whether it was an injury or a heat exhaustion, that there were people there willing to give a hand and to help.
My company was, at the last 2 miles going into Zion, and we stopped because a group in front of us was having problems, so we'd have to help them over the hard parts and then go back. And we were doing this, and it took us, like an hour and a half just to get in the last mile, just to get into Zion. And it was really hot, and we were out of water, so we had to go the last mile without water. And so my pa suggested that we prayed. So he said a prayer, and in the prayer he just said, the water will sustain us, that we can get into Zion. And right after he was done, this cool breeze came, and everyone just got really positive. We're like, all right, let's do the last push. So that was a neat experience.
There's one boy in particular who was pulling his handcart and pulling his handcart and pulling his handcart the whole time, all 4 days. In this last day, he ended up with heat exhaustion and dehydration, and he collapsed on the trail, and they had to carry him back to camp. And right before they took him to the hospital, I went up and talked to this young man, and tears were just streaming down his face. He was just so sad, and he was just crying, and he was just so distraught. And me, I thought he was distraught because he couldn't participate in the activities, because everybody wanted to run through the sprinklers, and everybody wanted to eat the cookies, and everybody wanted to do all those fun things and dance. And this young man, he said, I feel like I let my family down. He didn't care about any of that stuff. He pulled until he collapsed for his family, and it was just such a wonderful spiritual experience and a miracle, in my opinion, that this young man lost all selfishness out of his soul and out of his persona, and all he wanted to do was take his family to Zion. And to me, that was a miracle as well.
I saw these young men in a light of charity, and just all the little good, nice things people did, where people focused on other people's comfort, other people. It was not about themselves anymore. It was about, how can I help you get through this? How can I support you in your adversity? It's that charity, and you could feel that love permeate through the camp. You could feel it within the companies, you could feel it within the families, you could feel it within those that were working to support one another. And so I learned that to become a Zion-like people, that has new meaning for me now.
It was really great to get there, and I just had so much
more respect for the pioneers to know that they went through that, and it was so much harder for them because we had water and people were bringing it to us, and we had bathrooms, and we thought it was really hard even then. And so I was really grateful for my ancestors being able to do that.
Way down yonder, long time ago, Daddy had a man called Cotton Eye Joe. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? He made him fiddle, he made him a bow, made a little tune called Cotton Eye Joe. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe? I would have been married a long time ago, hadn't it been for the Cotton Eye Joe. Where did you come from? Where did you go? Where did you come from, Cotton Eye Joe?